Again, the time to beat, 9 minutes, 27.47 seconds. 7 of the 9 athletes in heat number 1 able to beat the 11-minute time cap. We mentioned in heat number 1 that these athletes had no exposure to the Rescue Randy portion of this. They weren't allowed to pick up the dummy, and so it was more of a watch and learn when it came to heat number 1.
Watching a lot of these athletes, the goal would be to get as much of Randy's mass off the ground as possible so there's the least amount of friction, but we're seeing different styles pulling that across. Some grabbing him by the vest, others grabbing him underneath the arms and trying to get his body off the floor.
Royce Dunn, the first athlete to the first of the 2 rope climbs, the CrossFit total winner in event number 3. The big Australian will be the first one to make the touch of the beam on Zeus after that second rope climb. And he'll head towards the south end of the North Park Stadium before they loop back around to exit on the north side.
And Brandon, one of the keys to this event here is to move with purpose on the run. You don't want to waste too much time. In an event where you have an 11-minute cap and you've got almost 1,300 meters of running, that's a lot of opportunity to make or lose time. But you also don't want to blow yourself out. And then, as always, on the oak course, you can't make mistakes. You've got to move with efficiency.
It's a pretty good head start for the big man. 6 foot tall, 224-pound Dunn out in front. As they exit the stadium, Alex Smith will be in second, Scott Panchik third, Josh Bridges, Ethan Helbig rounding out the top 5 as they exit the stadium, but they got some ground to make up on Dunn.
He's doing a really good job of holding that vest, and what we talked about in one of the earlier heats is, and anybody who's put a vest on knows, you have 2 options. You can strap it on tight so that it doesn't move around too much when you run, or you can keep it a little bit loose, which allows you to breathe more, but that bounces up and down, and that can become really fatiguing over time.
Lead pack making their way through the 650-meter run by the campground, where we've got a couple thousand fans this weekend making their residency for the few days of the CrossFit Games.
He's got a very healthy lead, but what we saw in the first heat was Tim Paulson had a really nice lead coming out and gave up that lead on the cargo net. So let's see if that same thing happens here.
It's interesting to think back to last year when we had the sprint version of the O course. Didn't have all these elements that they've done thus far, including this run before it, but still one mistake being ultra costly, no matter if it's a sprint version or this longer version this year.
Bring him around, bring him around. We have a thing that I use as a coaching tool where I'll ask the question in class, what's more important, speed or accuracy? And the answer is both, Brandon. You need them both, and you need them all the time.
Dunn making his way to the O course portion. It starts with the hurdles, and this should be zero problem for one of the tallest athletes in the field.
He's got a really nice pace from obstacle to obstacle, and what we saw in the first heat was that the wall might have been a little bit slick because it is overcast out, but looks like he's making that really, really easy, up and down, no problem.
So the rope wall complete, onto the low net, then the cargo net. And this is one of those obstacles where when you were talking about the placement of that plate carrier, where this could come in to play if you had a very loose plate carrier.
Yeah, if you've opted to keep it loose so that you can breathe, it has the potential to get snagged on the rope as you go underneath it. And that's what I talked to a couple of the guys who tested this out, and they all said the same thing. You're torn between keeping it tight and having that vest on loose.
Dunn makes his way up the cargo net. Second place is now going to be Cody Anderson. Easy to spot with the mustache on the right side of the screen a moment ago. But where we saw the lead change on this cargo net in heat number 1, we will not see that this time in the second heat as we make our way to the hop logs. Dunn first, Cody Anderson second, Sweeney in third.
But Brandon, what was a gigantic lead has been really shrunk down to almost nothing in the exact same spot as we saw in Heat 1. So maybe the cargo net is going to be the bottleneck point.
Struggling to keep his feet off the sand is Dunn. And he's going to have to come back to the start of this and give the lead to Cody Anderson. Sean Sweeney right behind him. So multi-time games veteran Cody Anderson, smallest in the field, but he's the man out in front as he's through the rope swing, has the monkey bars remaining, and if he's got a lead getting into the run, he might open this up even more.
Over to the monkey bars as Sean Sweeney must restart the rope swing. Scott Hansen now looking to take over second place.
How about this? The leader goes from the heaviest man in the field to the lightest man in the field, as it's Anderson in front, Sweeney in second. You saw Scott Panchik in the background a moment ago. He's made his way to third. In fact, give him second place. He opts to go on the outside lane. There's been a little bit less wear and tear on that one. But it's Anderson about 15 seconds clear of Panchik as they make their way into the second run. So Anderson does have experience on the O course. He was here 1 year ago. It's a very different version, but third place in that event 1 year ago. So we're going to see how that transfers from the short to the long version this time.
And Brandon, that's just one way that the sport of CrossFit and the CrossFit Games continues to evolve over time. Last year, it was a sprint type. This time, one of the things we talk about in CrossFit is always constant variety. We've got a long O course, we've got weight vests, we've got dragging dummies. It's a very different course this year.
So Anderson, if he can hang on, would be in the provisional position to possibly get his second career event win. He won the Muscle Up Biathlon in 2014, and if you're wondering, the weight of Rescue Randy will be 15 pounds heavier than Anderson is. Second place athlete Scott Panchik also looking for his second career event win, and that almost doesn't seem right. As you can see some more of the Panchik family. That would be Spencer Panchik running alongside just outside of the fence, possibly giving some encouragement, maybe a little bit of advice to Scott, as we already saw Saxon Panchik, Spencer's twin brother, complete this event a little bit ago. It's Cody Anderson with a big lead as he makes his way back into the stadium. The good news for him is he's in lane number 9. That's the closest one to the entrance, so this big lead is even bigger than it looks on the run portion of this, because he can go directly to his lane, as he's got about a minute 15 seconds to catch the time of Brandon Luckett of 9 minutes 27 seconds from heat number 1.
And the first rope that he has to climb, you can see it looks really big. It's 1.5 inches thick, so it's almost it's twice the size of the second rope. So really taxing on the grip.
One rope climb down, one rope climb remains. This is going to be close.
He does a great job of getting those feet up as high as possible, taking up as much rope as he can so that he can make it all the way up in just 3 pulls.
Anderson completes both rope climbs as Scott Panchik gets up to the rope for the very first time. It's a 30-second interval, first to second. And nobody else has made their way into the stadium until just now, where we'll have Sean Sweeney in third. Cody Anderson has 15 seconds to get Rescue Randy into the end zone and cross the finish line if he wants to beat that time set by Brandon Luckett in heat number 1. And as Rescue Randy hits the ground, it looks like Luckett's time will stand. Anderson opting to go for the straps this time.
And what I noticed there, it's a really smart move. You can see he's got his arms completely straight. That takes all the strain off the bicep. It makes it a little bit less grip intensive. Your arms are completely smoked. I think that's a great way to make this thing happen quickly.
So Brandon Luckett will continue to lead the way with 2 heats remaining, but heat number 2 is going to be a little bit closer than we anticipated when they came back to the stadium, but Cody Anderson will hold on to take heat number 2 at 9 minutes and 52 seconds. It'll be good for 4th overall. Scott Panchik will be in just after the 10-minute mark. At 10:02, that'll be good for the 6th fastest time through our first 2 heats. Alex Smith will be our 3rd finisher. Sean Sweeney, you see him barrel roll into the finish line. Be our 4th finisher in 9th thus far. Josh Bridges will come across the line at 10 minutes and 33 seconds, 5th in the heat, 11th thus far in the provisional rankings. Don't believe we'll have anybody else able to beat the time cap, as we're only 12 seconds away from that. Jared Enderton, who put on a show in the CrossFit Total, will be the closest to do so. He'll clear 2 of the 4 lines needed across the field with Rescue Randy, and he'll be hit by the time cap, as will 3 others in this heat. But Cody Anderson takes this one, 9 minutes and 52.6 seconds. It'll be good for 4th fastest through our opening 2 heats.
Cody Anderson closed the gap on the run and made a nice